Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of three opinionated guys with mics and too much free time. Strong enough to stop a speeding movie rumor. More powerful than a bad comic book event. Able to waste hours of time asking stupid questions to people who have better things to do. It's Dave, Ben, and John. It's Superhero Speak.
Did they know that you moonlight as a superhero?
The funny thing is, my son thinks Mantamji is equal to Superman. And the best story I have is I took him to the mall, and he was playing with some kid in a little mall, little parking thing, and he's like, "Let's play superheroes." And he's like, "I'll be Superman, you be Mantamji." And the kid looked at him like, "What?" So he thinks
Cool.
Mantamji is equal to all the others. And then I have the statue from the live action short. We have like sitting in my office, and the face job looks so real that he just stares at it all the time and thinks it's a real person. Funny.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I like that story, so I'm not going to cut it out. So,
All right.
When do we ever want to cut out anything in the beginning?
no,
of
we
this?
don't. So anyway, so those who haven't figured it out yet, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host, Dave.
And John.
And we have returning, technically, this week. He is not only a talented television director, he is also an independent comic book creator. He has created the legend of the Mantamji. See, I said it right.
You did.
And of course, it's Eric Dean Seaton. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're doing good. It was a little wet yesterday, but the sun came out today.
Wait, where are you guys? You're...
What? Wait, John, what is that?
Oh, that is literally a plane outside my window.
Oh, okay.
We aim for authenticity here at Superhero Speak. So, I'm not taking a plane somewhere.
Okay. We're in Philly, so yeah, it was a rainy day yesterday. Yeah.
I'm in LA, so it's just we have windy, so we're about to get El Nino or whichever one it is. So it's very, 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 very windy.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
are you getting rain? That's the big question.
Not yet. I think it's probably coming, but right now, no rain. So that's not bad. That's not too bad. Not too bad.
Hopefully soon.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we could use it.
Yeah.
So were you? That's a good way to lead into our first question. Were you born and raised in California?
No, I am born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I am a Buckeye through and through. I went to Ohio State. So I'm everything that is Ohio and everything that makes you want to get out of Ohio.
Nice.
So you missed the snow?
Pardon me? Do I miss the
snow?
I can hear you.
I'm sorry. Do you miss the snow?
No, I don't. You know what I miss? I miss the snow during the holiday season because you go outside. The seasons don't change here. There's no fall. I mean, the leaves are falling right now, but it's not much. And then Christmas and or Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, comes around that time, and then it's over, and the weather never changes. So I miss the weather. I don't miss being in the cold though. No.
Yeah, I've lived in Houston and I've worked in Las Vegas, and so those people who live with the seasons and then go over to a place where there aren't, it's kind of hard sometimes. So we have a friend actually who moved, we used to work with, David and I used to work with, who lives over San Francisco way, working for Pandora, and she really misses the seasons.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. I'm taking my son to Cleveland with me next week, so maybe if it's snowing, he'll get to see what that's like. But I like that on December 31st. If I need to run out and grab something, I can, and there's no change in the weather. But you just feel a hollow feeling like during the holidays. There's nothing to like. It's over. Like it's just another day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's nothing to indicate. And
right.
For your son, no snow days.
No snow days. And I growing up, I missed like weeks of school and stuff before. So no snow days at all. So that's a little weird.
So not to talk about weather the whole show. So was directing something you always wanted to do, and I assume that's why you moved out to California?
Yeah, it's weird. I I grew up loving storytelling. I loved, all movies and TV shows, and I was a weird kid. Like I would stay and watch the credits on movies and TV shows, and I always knew all these names and TV shows and every theme song. But it's going to sound weird, but it's a little different now because people have, phones on cameras on their phones. But I just didn't think you could become a director, and I didn't know how to become a director. And it's weird. Like right before I went to college, I wrote a letter to, of all people, Bill Cosby, saying that there were saying, look, I may think I'm funny, but I don't want to be a comedian. But you work with directors, and I would like to meet some directors. Like, could you, give me some ideas or recommendations on that? And I mailed the letter to his agents. I didn't even know they did the Cosby Show in New York. I mailed it to his agents in California, and I guess the way it was written, the agent felt sorry for me and gave it to him. And I ended up doing an internship on the Cosby Show, on the last season of the Cosby Show. So I was exposed to like everything television, directors, some of the top directors, all this stuff. And the weird thing was that kind of changed my whole perspective on like going after your dreams. And now I can't be more of a proponent than anybody. I always tell them, do whatever it is that's going to make you happy, even if it sounds like even if you have no idea how to do it or no idea into it, because 9 times out of 10, if you do what makes you happy, you're going to succeed and you're going to be happy and have a great life.
And just so our listeners know, the reason why Dave is asking this is because I am looking at YouTube right now with the Legend of Mantamji live short action movie, and I am really impressed. It's like it's got a Witchblade Blue Beetle feel with a Mantis twist.
I think you got it right. It's funny because when I made the books and even the short, like there's no like set reference of anything I grew up on, but in writing the story, I think it's just, I always call it like a soup, and I poured everything that I ever liked into the story. And so probably when you make a reference like that, you're probably 100% right. It's just not like something I actually said, oh, I love this in Mantis, or I love this in Blue Beetle, I'm going to add that. It's just like, I guess the epitome of things that just came out of like all the things I ever liked growing up, I put into it,
Well, and so. It's really cool because there's like, I mean, it raises a lot of questions. Like there seems to be a lot of backstory, and it's I can't wait to see more, which is really good. I mean, you see a lot of these YouTube one-offs, or guys like us trying to do something like this, and it's hard to get everything together just right, especially doing action scenes. But this is one of the few times I've been watching one, and like I get to the end, I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Nothing came to mind because I'm a curmudgeon. Okay, right. I'm old. I'm a curmudgeon. I'm supposed to pick on people, but it was really good. It was as good as some of the stuff you're seeing on TV.
Oh, thank you. That means, the funny thing is, you don't know how much that actually means. It really, like, people always say that stuff, but I'm honest when I was like, that means so much because you really, it's funny because I'm a working director. So I think I bring what I'm going to say right now is a little bit different than what people know, but a different perspective. But like I do all these shows, but at the end of the day, you don't own it. You're just trying to do the best job you can. It's not yours per se. You try to make it yours for the moment. But when it's actually something that's yours, and then, someone like you likes it or has that kind of comment, it means so much because it's like, it's the first thing of all the stuff I've done. It's the first thing it's like really mine. You know what I mean? Like right. There's no paycheck behind it. It's true passion, and it's true like my idea and all that type of stuff. So it actually really means a lot because anytime anybody's ever does something like that, there's a big gamble. Like you never really know. You're just putting out what you think is cool, what you think people would like, and also what you like, because you can't please everybody. And then, so when you get a great response, it really rings true, So.
Yeah. And what you're saying too, about not consciously picking, Blue Beetle or Mantis, just things that you like, from when you were a kid, putting it in the story. I mean, I definitely can relate to that, in a former life, not so much anymore. I was a musician and a songwriter. And start writing a song and somebody goes, oh, wow, but that kind of sounds like Led Zeppelin, or, oh, that kind of sounds like Pearl Jam. And it's like, I wasn't consciously trying to sound like them. It's just, it's, that's the stuff I like, so it gets mixed into there a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. Like, and that's I learned, and I'm sure you can attest to this. You don't worry about that, when somebody, you take it more of a compliment than saying, "Oh, you're trying to rip it off."
Oh
That's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You know here's the thing. In your heart of hearts, you know if you're trying to rip something off, or if you're just influenced by stuff. But we're all influenced by something. You know what I mean? Like nothing is either somebody motivates us or something that we've seen that we like, or even if we just say, hey, I want to do something exact opposite of that, we're still motivated by some sort of thing. You know what I mean? I mean, we're
right.
we're literally all the Star Wars generation, where we all, somehow, some way we're influenced by Star Wars, or something in Star Wars, or
Right.
or any of those movies of that time, even if it's like Godfather or something. We're all like, even every director, artist, everybody's always said they liked somebody before them,
Right.
and somebody before them did something cool. Mm-hmm.
Right. So actually, you brought up an interesting point earlier, and I was always kind of curious about this. Like, with a movie or a short or whatever, the director has his vision, and he has a lot of control over what happens and whatnot. But I imagine TV's a lot different, right? Because you're coming into a show that's established a lot of times, and you're just doing one episode or two episodes, and then you're going to move on to another project. Like, how does it work in television with directing?
It is. Well, first of all, TV is a writer's medium. If you really want to be a writer that has power, write for television. And the reason being is because they have to produce 22 episodes. So a movie is a one-time thing. Director's in charge because it's one vision, one thing, one movie. They're going to make it for a year, and then it's going to take a year, and then it's going to come out. But TV, they got to make 22, 23, 25, 13 episodes. So the writers have to be in charge because they're working on those scripts for, 2 months. Each script is pretty much worked on, except for towards the end of the season, for like almost 2 months, like 6 to 8 weeks, so they know the overall arc and all that. And so rightfully so, they should be in charge. And so as a television director, you kind of come in, there's a tone of the show. Now, it's weird because if you do the pilot, you set the tone of the show. So the pilot director is 100% influential in that show. And then for the most part, there's a tone that's set by the second episode, whether that be the pilot director or that be the main director that comes in next, who's a lot of times director producer. They set the tone, and the look is established. And so you do have to maintain. You do get to be you. You do get to be extremely creative, and you do. And here's the thing: they could hire anybody, or not anybody, but they could hire a lot of different people. So you do have to leave a mark, as well as not rock the boat at the same time. So you have to add something. And this example I can give you is there's a director, Glenn Winter, who did the pilot to Small, and he was the Dion Arrow and directed and Smallville and Flash, and now he did the pilot to Legends of Tomorrow. Well, he didn't direct till episode 18 of the first season of Arrow. But what he did in that episode set the tone for the rest of the series because he did dissolves and great transitions with the flashbacks, and he gave it a real style and a great look, and it pretty much changed his career because he got to do Supergirl, and going from the CW to CBS to get a pilot is the producers really have to back you because the network would say no, and because he doesn't have the track record. But he totally established a look and a style that now everybody is emulating when they do that show. So here's a case where 18 episodes in, a man's life was changed because he had a true vision and a true artistic style. So you do get to really make a difference, but you do at the same time have to fit in and leave your mark. And for comedy, did you come up with something funny that week? Did you add a little something? Did the cast have a good time? Did you get everybody out on time? For action, like what he did, probably something stylized but still finished within a day and all that. But it's very tricky because it's also a lot of people want your job. It's a very interesting business, and the later a series goes, the trickier it can be to be a director on a show. You kind of want to get in. The sweet spot is into year one and the beginning, but all of year two is good, and the beginning of year three. Pretty much after the midpoint of year three, it can get a little dicey too.
Okay.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
Because what happens is, once the show's on, everybody wants an opportunity to direct. One of the best ways to get a chance to direct is if the show's on the air for a few years. That's how I got to direct. I was on a sitcom, That's So Raven, that was on for a couple of years, and I was the first AD. And so you do get your opportunity. So you have to make the most of it, but then it becomes the opportunity not opening up. Everybody wants one, and for them, everybody's good. But listen, it's life, and there are people that don't have your best interest at hand because they have their own best interest at hand. So it can become very interesting.
Right. So yeah, and that I was going to say. So right, in your first credit was That's So Raven, and then you've done shows like Pair of Kings, Mighty Med, and
I did the pilot. Yeah, I did the pilot to Mighty Med and the pilot to Kickin It, so I was able to establish the look for both of those shows. And then I've been doing a lot of adult stuff lately. I did some Undateables last year and the year before, the first season, and then I just did a Truth Be Told for NBC, which airs after Undateable, which is a really, really nice show and a great cast. And it was kind of cool because I used to watch Saved by the Bell. And finally got to work with Mark Paul Gosselaar, who couldn't be more of a professional and nice guy. Like that thing when you meet somebody and you've always seen them. And we never made any reference to Saved by the Bell, of course. But I left there going, what a cool guy. Somebody you can hang out with. You know what I mean? Like real stand-up guy. Very professional. And the funny thing is, you forget that he did some TNT shows, but you forget he was on NYPD Blue. Like he's had a real 20-year career, since Saved by the Bell of real acting because he's really good. You know what I mean? He really cares.
Right. So that what I was going to ask though is, you've done a lot of stuff on Disney and Nickelodeon. Do you like doing the family-friendly stuff? And
I do, but that's not what I watch. I watch the same thing you guys watch. I just caught up on The Flash this morning, I adult stuff. And the funny thing was, my whole thing of the kid shows was, they always write it with a theme in mind. I would always Homeland, whatever the adult show version is, that's how I would try and shoot the kid show version. Like if it was action scene and I saw something on Homeless and it was similar, Homeland, that's what I was trying to do, the Homeland version of the kid show or whatever, whatever action thing it was. I was always trying to do, the adult, version of it, blend it into that world, because that's my sensibility. But I have to say, for anybody, and if you want to direct, or even in the comic book world, you have to find the road less traveled. And I got into kids programming because it was a road less traveled. Literally, That's So Raven was Disney's first sitcom, and nobody wanted to come there. It was the first one. They didn't. There's a pay scale that everybody gets, set up by the unions, and because it was their first one, they were paying 83 to 87% of the scale, so it wasn't even a full rate. But for me, it was just about the opportunity. It's like they kept getting canceled, and I wanted to direct, and I was like, I need to be somewhere where it's going to last. And so that was the perfect opportunity and the perfect place. So I can't say that I traveled the road less traveled, which led me to the light. So that's what I would, especially with the digital age now and different ways you can do things, like find the road less traveled, because you need to be seen, because there's so much clutter out there, it's just about getting seen.
Right. So, all right. So then how did all of that experience, translate into your graphic novel, or were they totally separate animals in your mind?
Totally separate animals in my mind, but now looking back, and I did not realize at the time, because I kept putting it out there in my mind, I kept coming back to it. One of my first jobs was on a show called Living Single, which was on Fox, and the director at the time was married to the president of Marvel. So every Tuesday when he would come to the taping of the show, I would drill him about everything Marvel ad nauseum, to the point where they had bought a company called Malibu Comics and invited me onto the company for a tour of how they make the comic books. And my buddy and I showed up in suits. And the first thing he said is, "Why are you all dressed up in suits?" I was like, "Well, we're trying to represent." He's like, "Oh yeah, well the last people that came in here in suits was us, and we bought the place, so everybody's nervous." So they gave us a tour, and at the end of the tour, the editor asked me, did I want to write a Spider-Man Stop the Violence special. And I did, and I don't know if it was 3 weeks or 3 months later, Marvel went into bankruptcy, so I've never seen it. I know it's come out because someone's told me it came out, but imagine you get to write Spider-Man, which is one of the greatest heroes of all time, even though it's just a little one thing special. But you wrote your own comic book, so the bug it had taken over by then. That I had to do my own. I had a taste of the good of what it's really like, and it just became a nighttime set of 6. And I just had one of the things I did was the books were not going to come out till all 3 of them were done. I knew it was going to be a 3-book graphic novel series because I always hated that I used to love the Image books in the 90s, and then they would stop. And I never got to the end of the story would just stop. And I would just always get mad for an ending, so I definitely had to have an ending. So that was the big thing. And also because I'd never written a novel before, so I decided to do it in the style that I direct a show, which is you shoot the show, and then you go into editing, and you may make some changes, and then, finally come out with the thing. So when we did the books,
right.
He drew them by scene, not by page. We didn't number them till the end. And then once we got it and we put the words on it, we went back in and made changes. If the words didn't work, I rewrote it. If there were images missing, we would reformat the page and add pages. And so it was like we edited ourselves before the books actually came out, which helped a lot. And I think it totally worked.
Right. And again, you're doing this all through your own company, right? I mean,
I am.
Totally independent.
Yeah, which I did not know that there was a glass, all that research, all that stuff. And the 2 things I didn't know, we premiered at Comic-Con. And after all that, the first time it was time to sell the books, I didn't have a pitch. Like I didn't have a 2-sentence pitch on what the book was. So I made up one that weekend, which was hilarious. All that work, all those years, and never was like, so I had that. And then the other thing is I did not realize there was such a big glass ceiling on independence. Because at first we would always hear, oh, your book is good for an independent. And we would just hear the book is good. But after a while, you start to really listen and you hear foreign independent. Oh. And so there really is a thick glass ceiling independence that you get through.
So that's something I haven't heard before. I mean, is this like the same kind of glass ceiling with regular artists and creators where like if you're in Marvel, you're either writing background characters or a couple of pages, whereas some guys are able to do the covers and stuff? Or is it like there's a couple of independents that everybody looks to and says, oh, they're the ones that made it, and you have to break into that? Or
no, I think the real thing of the independence, and different than the 2 companies, is that it's not the artists and the other people that look at it, because you guys are like, you saw the book and you guys wanted to talk to me, which was great, so you see the quality. It's the average fan turns their nose at independence. The fan that you get when you have a story with something new that's been around for 50, 60 years aren't initially open to it because they haven't heard of the name. There's no name behind it. And there's really 2, Marvel and DC are Americana. They're ingrained in our, even if you're not into comic books, Disney owns Marvel. If you take your kid to a Disney store, one wall is Disney, one wall is Star Wars, one wall is Marvel. So even if you never bought your kid a comic book, he still might be wearing a Captain America t-shirt. So they are Americana. They that's why Steven Spielberg was wrong when he said, probably maybe one of the only things he's ever been wrong about, because I love Steven Spielberg. He was wrong when he said comic books will go away like the Westerns. They won't, because you're not buying your kids shirts of of cowboys and Indians, but you're buying your kids shirts of Batman and Superman and Spider-Man. They're ingrained in our society. They're our Greek gods. They're Americana. And they will pass on from generation to generation. Now, will every movie make $1 billion? No, every movie won't make $1 billion. But will superheroes always be around? Absolutely. They'll never go away.
In one form or another.
Right. They're I mean, you can't even really say modern anymore, but they're, the modern myths,
Yeah.
And myths last generations and generations. So yeah. But the thing is, I think one of the other issues too, right? Like you're saying, they're ingrained in the Americana. Marvel and DC's been around for 75 plus years, at least DC. Marvel's 60 plus years, and it's you can just put out a new Spider-Man book, and there's a guaranteed built-in audience. Independence. You guys, the difference is you have to work for your audience a little bit more.
Yep.
But you're doing something you love. You're creating your own character. I've talked to lots of people on this show. I have lots of friends who have worked for Marvel and DC, and a lot of them have all said the same things. Like, Oh yeah, it's great to work on Batman. I grew up reading Batman. I love Batman, but now that I'm doing my own creator-owned book, I have the freedom to do what I want and tell the story the way I want to tell it. So there's more there. Independents are a lot more creative a lot of times. And
Oh, absolutely. They are more creative, and they have more freedom. But it's just it's a system that's set up in a weird way. Even with the comic book shops, it's weird because comic book shops have to pay the direct market. They have to pay up front. So independents, they buy to sell. Spider-Man, you can buy 10 extra Spider-Mans because every 10 years Sony's going to remake the same movie. So eventually you could get rid of that book. So with an independent, though, unless it crosses over and becomes something like, because you have to pay up front, you could get stuck with. So the whole market from the direct market to how people see independence is just set up in a way that is it's a very thin. If they're going down a street, it's a very thin street, and it's a glass ceiling. So you just really have to keep banging away to break that glass ceiling. Once you can do that, then you're good to go. But that's the thing I did not realize. I always thought, because I was always somebody that would go by the independents and, oh, this is cool, this is different, as well as I would go by the Marvel or the DC booth. But, you always go by what you think, but it's not always what everybody else thinks. And that's the one thing I've learned is it's just trying to break that glass ceiling.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's the whole thing is Spider-Man had to start as an idea for somebody, and Superman had to start as an idea in somebody's head. They weren't huge successes just because Marvel did them. They became successes over time.
Yeah, but they came at the ground floor, like he was saying, is that they took the chance.
But I also kind of think, and it's, I mean, of course, we're a podcast, so we're not following any rules of normal broadcasts. But it also comes back to us too, and I'm talking to all of my fellow podcasters and people in the media who listen to this show. Like, it's the idea of treating a comic book differently because it's independent, or treating a movie differently because it's independent. It's still a creative outlook, and you have to take each thing on its own merits, regardless of it was produced by Marvel or produced by Eric by himself. Right. And that's the whole thing, and that's one of the reasons, like, because somebody asked me this not too long ago, like, they said, "Oh, I really love your show because you have a good mix of guests on your show." And it's like, well, of course, I would never turn away an independent because I think, if I had Neil Adams on here, he might draw a bigger audience, but that's fine. But I also want to give the voice to the guys who are doing it on their own, because they're just as important of a voice.
Yeah, but we totally have Neil on here. We would totally do that.
And you should.
But then even Neil had to start somewhere. Right. And all these guys had to start somewhere. And so, if we find the next Todd McFarlane or whatever, then, that you have to keep giving people chances, or else we're stuck with the same people, and that glass ceiling turns into a one-way door.
Yep. Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does.
So for the listeners, why don't you give them the rundown on Legend of the Mantamji?
Okay. Yeah, where'd you come up with the idea for the powers? That is really interesting.
It really was like a smorgasbord of just like ideas, and I did do a lot of research, like on African history and things like that, and the weapon that I chose, the Ankh, is the Egyptian key of life. So I just felt like a key of life. What kind of weapon? And then with all stories, you have to give it a weakness. So. He can only make weapons that were around 3,000 years ago. So no guns and missiles of today, because that's where they started. But basically, for everybody listening, if they don't know, Legend of Mantamji is the story of a shallow, conceited district attorney of New York who finds out he's the last in a race called the Mantamji that used to protect us from the forces of evil. So he's the last person you would ever want to be a hero, has to defend us against an evil sorcerer who's been resurrected in New York City and is posing as a religious leader. So it's a world building story where you find out about the Mantamji 3,000 years ago, and it all takes place in present day, and there's flashbacks and a lot of twists. Like each book ends with a huge twist, and it's a complete story. and this is the most unlikable guy. Like if you only read the first 30 pages, you won't like him because he really is a shallow, conceited guy, and it's his journey of if he survives, becoming a better person and stuff. And so the Mantamji, they can create illusions, and they have an Ankh, which is Egyptian key of life. It looks like a cross with a loop, and it can become any weapon you can think of, except that was around 3,000 years ago. So swords, whips, staffs, knives, no guns, no missiles, no bombs.
So here's a question, because you had already told me the short is the beginning of the book, the first book. And I am just curious if this was a conscious decision, because I thought this was actually a really cool thing, and to me it spoke about the character. The first thing that he creates actually isn't a weapon; it's a shield.
Yeah.
To defend himself first, before he goes and attacks. Right. So was that a conscious decision, or? Yes.
Yes, it was, because when you read the whole stories, you find out that basically it starts out with him as the Mantamji. And that the short is the actual opening scene of book one. That's how book one really starts. And I felt that here's a guy because he took on the thing for the wrong reason. His first thing is defense, and then it becomes offense after that. So his first thing is protect himself, because I thought the symbolism of that. So the shield was definitely a purposeful choice. Just the fact that he runs and jumps into the middle of a room, I was like, nobody would do that unless they don't really know what the heck they're doing. So like
very true.
When you think about it, he literally runs down the side and he leaps into the middle of a room, like he just made himself a dead target. So like even that, like even his movement, it's hard because you only got like 6 minutes, so you can't get into the subliminal stuff of all that stuff. But yeah, that every choice was an actual choice, which reflects, what's going on.
And so here's another question, and we talked about this a little bit in New York, and this isn't meant as a loaded question or anything like that.
Oh, you can load it. I'm ready for it. Load it up.
No, but you're not only are you an independent, but you're an African American, and you're telling the story of an African American character. And let's be honest, the comic industry is not known for balance.
Not at all.
And only within recent years have we, become more accepting of African American characters. Right. Have you felt any kind of resistance or issue with that?
Here's the thing. Yes, but in saying that, I don't know that it's race-based versus lack of seeing a lot of heroes of color that have lasted continuously for a long time to know that they to open up to this one, because I believe Black Panther will open huge, and it's a Marvel movie. So some people don't like Marvel movies. I think their movies are great because it's a movie. So I think it'll be a great movie.
I like them too.
What do you say? So
John's a DC guy, so.
Oh, okay. I think they'll do. Then in 2020, when you guys do Cyborg, I'm sure that will be good too. But I have to be honest. Like, this is how I look at it, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. I'm going to be probably one of the first people to see Black Panther, but in honesty, that'll be the 18th movie that they made. So it was more important to do the Rocket Raccoon and a man talking to ants and a talking tree, as cute as it was, than to do a movie about a hero from the biggest continent with the most people in the world. So there's something said to that. That said, I look forward to the movie, but I also go, that character is 40 or 50 years old, as is Power Man when it comes on Netflix next year. We don't have anything that's long-term that's running. There's no character from the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years that kind of really resonates. So, kind of like a victim of the system. And I don't think the system is fair, and I don't think the system is right. But it is the system. Like, there just hasn't been staying power of those heroes. And I think a lot of them are coming back now because they're going to be TV shows and movies. I don't know that they were rushing to bring them back if they weren't going to be something else, which is sad because they are great characters. But just like in the movie, they just weren't never top. They were just never top 10 characters. So right. I always try to make sure I'm saying this right, because I don't want to make anybody think I'm insulting these characters, because Cyborg was my favorite character and Teen Titans was my favorite book growing up, and I loved Black Panther. So I'm not insulting either one of them in a way, but I am pointing out the fact that there's a problem and it's been going on for a long time. And I don't think that the problem is necessarily over, although we are making strides. One movie does not make a trend. One is not a trend.
Right.
But it all just started with Blade, this modern age of superhero stuff. At least in the Marvel world, started with Blade, and then 18 movies later, we get another one. So one is not a trend. You know what I mean? I think we have a long way to go, and it does make it hard that he's African American. What makes it hard, though, is that people assume that it's just a black book, if you can use that term, and he's just fighting to save drugs out of the neighborhood. No, he's trying to save the world, and it's a multicultural book. Yes, he's black, but there's no reference to him being black, because my thing is this: I grew up loving Indiana Jones and loving James Bond, and they always saved the world. I never saw a woman or any person of color saving the world, so I wanted to save the world, because my thing is, if you see people of color and women and minorities, whoever saving the world, and that becomes the norm, then it opens it up, and then you start having more stuff like that, So when the only part that I get upset is if someone thinks it's just a black superhero and it's only a black thing. It's like, no, he's in New York, and New York is multicultural, and he's saving the world just like everybody else did, like Iron Man did, like whoever else did. And you'll find a lot of other characters that relate to you if you're a woman or a man or African American or Indian or Asian and all that. So I always want people to go beyond that, and then and look at that. That's my thing. That's where I get a little like want to push the envelope or get a little huffed up about. But yeah, it's definitely harder.
Basically, you're not making a big deal because it shouldn't be a big deal, and it shouldn't even matter, and it shouldn't be something somebody even thinks about. That, oh, his skin color is. It should just be, hey, hero.
Right. But in seeing his skin color, if that subliminal message gets to you, and the next time you see a hero of the same color or close to the same color, and you go, oh, that's cool, then it is doing its job. It is opening up the world. I think you can have a social message without alienating people and hitting them over the head.
No, and that's so true. And it's so funny because we actually had this conversation, I want to say maybe 6 months ago with another creator, and we were talking about not African American but homosexual characters. And it's getting better now, but there was a time where it was like they would introduce a gay character and everything about that character was him being gay. And it's just like two of my best friends are gay, and they're just regular guys that I don't they don't talk about gay things all the time. They don't sit there and, because it's, it's using stereotypes to try to use a character and make it acceptable, but it doesn't work that way. They're just regular people.
They're marketing them.
Oh, absolutely.
It's marketing. That's all it is.
Absolutely. I mean, look, even though Power Man was created in the 70s in black exploitation, if you always remember, he was always doing stuff for money. Like every other superhero was doing it he was doing it just for money. I'm not going to take that on. So there was all, so they were definitely like, he's black. We got to throw some black thing in there to make it feel black, which kind of took away from it. You know what I mean? Like Power Man, but he's doing this stuff for money. And then of course they had the horrible slang, Sweet Christmas and all that other stuff. But we can look beyond that because maybe that's part of the time. But he was, fine, we got a black hero, but he's only doing stuff to get paid. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, you're right about that. Like the gay characters and always having to say they're gay and all that. Like that alienates people. That doesn't help.
Right. No, exactly. Cause, actually, one of the first times we covered a convention was at, the ECBAC, East Coast Black Age of Comic Book Creators. Yeah. And I met Tony Isabella there, and he was talking about when he worked at Marvel, and he's like, oh, we have to give African Americans a voice, and they were like, oh, well, we have Luke Cage, and he's like, yeah, but he's an ex-con, he's doing it for money, blah blah, and that's one of the reasons he actually left Marvel, went over to DC, and created Black Lightning, because he was trying to create a character who didn't have all these black marks on his record, like just an ordinary guy who wanted to be a superhero who happened to be African American, and
the one I want to see is Static Shock, for crying out loud. I mean, the backstory in that one is really, it's a story of hope.
Yep.
And of pain, but it's not. It's like you're getting at. It's a normal hero story. It has nothing to do with the skin color or anything. And his characterization is incredibly good.
Right.
So.
Yep. Hopefully they're gonna do it. Hopefully they'll. They're working on it, I think. So hopefully they'll come out with it. So,
I think,
but the more the merrier, because I like I said, one is not a trend. And the funny thing about this is when one does good, it opens up the door for others.
Right.
So I will. There's only one other time, and I've said this recently. I was talking to somebody that I will. The only thing that'll make me sad is when they do have these My Hero or Static Shock or Power Man, or whatever, if they start to go in sentences in the press, or they write, well, they have all these heroes, so now they have to have a black one. It's like no, you don't have to have a black one. You just have to have a hero, and he just happens to be of this color because you did not have it before. When it gets to that point, then I will be sad because that means that people are missing the point. But a lot of people do. Like, this is still a niche market, the stuff that we love and watch and do. It's still a niche market.
Right. Well, and one of the things too is when they're going to do a character and they race change a character, and it's just like, well, okay, I understand you're trying to bring diversity to this movie, but why not just pick one of the many African American characters that already exist and give them a movie? Yeah,
that's a slippery slope. My answer has always been the same on that, is that I'm okay with it, but it points out the fact that you couldn't pull from your 4,000 characters because you did not develop any minority characters. So,
right.
And you have to realize these are companies doing this to reinvigorate things that are stale. So it's still the same thing. At the end of the day, they can always switch them back. You know what I mean? It's not like you go pull from had they been developing, multicultural characters throughout all these years, then you could pull from it, I do like what they did on Flash, making Iris, and her father black. That's different. They weren't really, I don't think she wasn't a superhero, right? She was always just.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's fine. I think that's great. It makes that show that much better.
But there's rumors that Wally West is going to be black too. Wally West is actually her long lost brother.
He is.
Well, obviously, Wally would have to be black if Iris is black.
Yes, I know.
Let's be logical, people.
Right. Yeah. No, they are doing that. I don't know if you saw last night's episode, but they mentioned that there was a brother. So it's coming. That's coming.
No, and that's fine. I mean, I don't have an issue with that. In fact, I will actually. It's funny. As bad as the Fantastic Four movie was, the only defense I have for that movie for Fox was when race changing Johnny Storm, because they didn't have any other characters to pick from, and they're trying to do a superhero franchise.
Right.
So
where they failed in two fronts on that.
Mm-hmm.
They failed because I saw the movie. They failed.
Oh, you poor thing.
I know.
Who threatened your kids?
I know, right? They failed in a relationship, the brother and sister relationship, which would make you care. And they failed in the interviews leading up to the movie. I thought Michael B. and I forgot the girl's name did a great job. But Fox should have been more aggressive, and they should have been able to be more aggressive for people that would act stupid and ask them stupid questions.
Right.
Because the thing is, you can control that. I mean, you can paint the people, you can flip that back on people and make them feel idiots for doing it. And you can also control how things are talked about in the press. And I thought they failed. I thought Fox failed the actors on that point. And I thought that the story failed the characters and Fox failed the actors. That's what I felt with that.
No, I agree with that, because I saw some interviews where, and a couple times they were asked about, well, how can you be brother and sister if you're not the same? And it was just like, hello, this is 2015. Yeah. The idea of a traditional family has changed many times over. Like, of course there's adoption, or half brother, half sister, whatever the story is, it's very possible.
Absolutely. And I thought it could have addressed it more in the movie. And I thought they could have had a better bond. Like, there was no real connection between the two of them.
Yeah.
Being brother and sister, So that's where I think it.
Well, that was that was the biggest criticism of all about the movie, is that they're Marvel's first family, but they didn't feel like a family at all in the movie.
I think they. I've always said this, and Kevin Feige said it. Because he's much bigger than I am. He said no matter how silly the origin story is, find a way to tell it. And the fact that they have yet to tell the Fantastic Four the right way is baffling to me. When you consider Iron Man, they cast a great actor and got a great director, but let's face it, he was in a cave and they asked him to build a bomb and he built a suit. They never could tell the difference between a bomb and a suit, but it worked because they committed to that wholeheartedly. in the movie. And that's all you have to do with these superhero movies, you know. That's why the sequels to the superhero movies are so much harder than the first ones, because you're going away. You really are creating an original story with the sequel, where in the original origin movie, you can tell the story like, you know, but they made it work. And that, to their credit, that launched the Marvel Age of movies. And why Fox can't figure that out, why they would make a Fantastic Four movie that never told the origin, that makes it baffling.
Well, I actually have to disagree with you. They did make a Fantastic Four movie that told the origin story right. It's just that Roger Corman did it, and they never released it. That movie is literally better than the last two big budget ones. I can't get over that.
Although Dr. Doom's mask, I don't think that holds up.
No, that didn't hold up. But they acted properly. I mean, they acted to their comic book characterizations, and the storyline was actually really good, and they actually did stuff, and
right,
you know,
right. That's hilarious. Yep.
So since you have, you know, you do have a connection with Disney and you're a director, would you ever want to direct an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I'd love to. It's a long process. Hopefully the short will help me get onto that road. Basically, in Hollywood works like this. Whatever, and Denzel Washington actually said they're hard to get in, so you have to pick whatever road you can get in at. I got in doing programming, and then it took a while, and now I'm going to do adult programming. And the short's going to help open up some roads where I get to do some more actiony adult programming, and then on and on and on. So, hopefully I would love to do Shield, Arrow, Flash, especially Arrow, because that's the only show I watch in real time. And I would love to do all that stuff, but it's a process. So yeah, I got the short now, and then I have to, you know, hopefully get some meetings and hopefully show some other stuff, maybe shoot some other. We actually want to make more shorts, show some of the other characters, and then do some more stuff with him.
Good, because I'm
I actually thinking about doing that one was done with friends and favors, so now I kind of have to find money. So we might do a crowdfunding at the beginning of January. We're trying to put together now where we do about 6 or 7 different shorts of different characters. Some will be scenes from the book. Some will be scenes that either were prequels, like Mariah, the mom, basically in the story. The Mantamji, one of them went bad, Sirac, 3,000 years ago, and they got into this big battle, and pretty much all the Mantamji were wiped out. And the last leader, Kandor, took his pregnant wife and put her in a suspended animation to wake up in present day if Sirac or any Mantamji ever returned. So the mother, Mariah, goes to sleep for 3,000 years, wakes up with what becomes Elijah, her son. And so when you see them now, he's grown, he's a shallow DA, and she's a older woman. But I would love to do like a little short showing her fighting pregnant and just, waking up in Africa and then making her way to the U.S. and, moving around and not knowing 3,000 years later, not knowing what happened and not knowing where they are and all that type of stuff. So we're putting together hopefully a little plan to do 6 or 8 little shorts that are all different tones, different stories. Like I said, some will be scenes from the book, and some will be like those prequels and things I talked about, and some of the other characters' backstories that they verbally talked about but you did not see. So hopefully I get to do that. Then that'll give me a nice, a whole lot of footage to show for shows like S.H.I.E.L.D. and other stuff like that. Yeah. As well as
serial.
Pardon me? Yeah, as well as build the brand. You know what I mean? Like build the brand. Because with 3 books, we have so much backstory. Anybody that reads them, you'll see there's so much story and so many things you could do and so many things we were able to do. We basically created a world that there's, there's a lot to do. And we're actually working on 2 more books right now. So, continuing the story of all the characters that survived.
Cool. What do you think was the biggest challenge in writing the story and getting it done?
Oh, book 1, the origin. Because there's 2 ways to do an origin. And if you're telling the Batman story, you can wait 45 minutes to see him in Batman or Spider-Man. If they don't know what your character is, you need to show them something right away. You need to, you either start off like Raiders of the Lost Ark, or you start off like, Batman Begins or Spider-Man. You know what I mean? You either take your time to do it. And I believe, and for the longest time, I wanted to start off like Spider-Man. And it wasn't until finally the last year when we were working on book 3 that you put your ego aside and you go, nobody knows what this is. Give them something right away. And that's why he starts off like that's why the short is the first scene in book one, and it actually works because it shows you how different the books are to start off that guns blazing like that. And that was the hardest part. So we were even working on book three, and I was still moving scenes around in book one. And it's pilot. If for anybody that doesn't get that, doesn't write a book but watches TV, think of a pilot. How hard pilots are. Because when you think about the dialogue in a pilot, when people are talking, they're always saying what their job is or where they're from. They're never talking like we are having a normal conversation. They're always like, well, when my wife left me, I just felt like I just should take this job on. You know what I mean? Like what?
I think
Because they have to tell you
Tarantino would write it that way, but
yeah. So yeah,
That is so true. That is so true. And it's so funny. Like I never thought about it until you just said it, but that's like with Indiana Jones. If it hadn't opened with that scene in the jungle, you would have lost interest if it started with him in a university talking about being an archaeology professor.
Oh yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, literally, you saw him in the scene in the jungle. Then you go, wait, he's a professor? Like a professor is like that? Is that action guy? Like, everything about that movie worked and how they did it, and it's a great example of how to start off. Even in the Matrix, when they start off with Trinity, and she breaks the laws of gravity with the kick, it's something different. You know what I mean? Like, wait, what is this? Then you could take your time with Neo and show him, but they basically in that opening scene. Her leaping and all that showed you stuff that he ends up doing. So you still saw it, So.
Right.
Do you think that goes for novelizations too? I mean, I can understand for movies because you have a really limited amount of time. And if you've got a new character, you really do have to grab people's imaginations really quickly. And same thing with, I guess, comic books, because you're putting out basically a very small amount every month and you want them to buy the next month after the first month. So you have to grab them then. You don't want to take like 5 months to tell the backstory. What about novels? What do you think of that?
I agree. I think so. I think it helps now because all this media is cross-pollinated and so saturated. I do think you should start off with something. And the last few novels I read, they have I unfortunately haven't had time to read a lot of novels, but I just think it's better to always start with something. And then we can all find out later on what it is, because you get us involved right away, And I just think that for the passive fan or the aggressive fan, I think it works.
Yeah, John, not to step on Eric's toes, you and I are both big fans of the Dresden Files. Think about how the first book starts out. He comes into a scene, that of where the police hired him, and it's a kind of a morbid scene and sets the tone for the books right away. I think that's where the opposite, what you had just said with like Spider-Man or Batman or whatever, what you're in for. A great example is when they relaunched back in 2000 with the Ultimate series. They first started with Ultimate Spider-Man, and he doesn't actually become Spider-Man until like issue 3, but when Bendis wrote it, he knew that. He knew the payoff. Everyone knew the payoff who went into it. He's going to become Spider-Man. So he really elongated the origin story. But I don't really care for the first couple of issues because it's like I want to get to the action right away.
But what you're saying is when you have a big name like that, you can trade on the anticipation.
Right.
Okay, so how's the spider gonna bite him this time? And that sort of thing. And people are actually waiting to see other things other than, I wonder what his first punch in the face is going to look like.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I just think it helps. But I gotta be honest, I can't say that it took me, years. I fought it for a long time, and finally said, put your ego aside. What's best for the series? What are people gonna respond to? And then that's how I came up to that decision.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always true, I think, in any art, is you have to put your ego aside and what serves the story best, what serves the art best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now, having done it, I swear by it, and that's the only way I'll ever do it. So going from one spectrum to the other.
So you said you wanted to do a couple more shorts.
Yep.
And then you have a couple more issues in the works. Yep. But for those who want the graphic novel now, or the first 3 issues, what's the best way they can get a hold of
They
this?
should go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or our website, which is Legend of the Mantamji, which I will spell because it's very hard. MANTAMAJI.com. Actually, if you just go to the website, it has the short. It has all the links of every way you can get it. You can get it digitally or print. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobe, Comixology. So there's every which way. We have all 3 books, and then I'm sure we're with the holidays coming. If you buy it from us on our website, I'm signing each copy. So we'll definitely have some holiday gift packs.
Nice.
All that. So that'll be cool.
You even
which
have a
is fun.
Kindle edition.
Pardon me?
You even have
yeah.
a Kindle
we have
edition.
a
I'm
Kindle
looking at it right now.
edition. Yeah, it's available in every format. And then a friend of mine wants to translate it into Spanish and some other languages. So I definitely want to take him up on that too. So I mean, I really got into this to build a world. That's why the books are so big. Each book's like 200 pages, and there's so many characters and so much stuff. And that's the thing we're doing with the next 2 books. I really did want to build a world. Like I love, watching shows or reading books with all these characters and things that have been around for 40 and 50 years that you love. So there really was a passion to, not, hey, I'm create this to make it to a TV show or a movie. It really was to build this empire, this series, and this universe. And would I love it to be other things? Absolutely. But the first and foremost, I wanted to create my own universe.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
you've got some nice reviews here on Amazon too. People seem to really like it.
Oh yeah. No, we've been blessed. People really like it. They are responding to it, and they like the short. And I have to say this is funny because when people watch the short, you can it's interesting to read all the comments and some people that critique it, and they like filmmakers, and then others that are just like it has potential, and I'm like, well, you should check out the books. It's like like they think it just came out of nowhere, but yeah, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that must be the hardest thing, to put out something and then see the Amazon comments start to come in and wondering, do I want to read them? Do I really want to? Do I want to put myself through them?
I know you always do. Listen, for me, I always read them. I always do. And after a while, you kind of get a perspective. But we've been lucky. Like everybody we got 4 or 5 stars. It's oddly enough, people even like book 2 better than book 1 because, like I said, it's hard to do that origin story. But by book 2 is just wall to wall action and story, and we just jump in. So yeah, we got all great all 5 reviews on book 2, 5 stars. Yeah.
But I think the best criticism of all is your son thinking he's a real character.
I know.
Or as important of a character as Superman.
Yes. Well, yes. Now, mine doesn't have a cape, so he has to be Superman because, of course, Superman has a cape. But he does want other people to be Mantamji. So yes, which I'm okay with. He has his Superman cape on every other day, and I'm okay with it. I actually help him put it on. So it's all good.
Just tell him Mantamji's so badass he doesn't need a cape.
I will say exactly that.
Oh man. Well, you know what? That's actually I don't know if you've listened to the show before, but that's a good way to lead into our sign off.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
But before we do,
okay.
Go through the let's see, go through where we can find you, where people can find you.
Oh yes.
And
you can follow me on Twitter, which is my name, Eric Dean Dean Seaton, Seaton. You can go to the Legend of Mantamji Facebook page, or just go to legendsofmantamji.com, which has the link to everything. Again, Mantamji is MANTAMAJI.com. And then you can get the book on Amazon, Kindle, Kobe. I'm available on every social medium there is, including Instagram, and it's all my name or Legend of Mantamji. One of those, you remember those 2 names, you'll be able to find pretty much the entire universe.
Yes.
And are you doing a Patreon or a Kickstarter or anything like that?
We will be doing a Kickstarter, I think in the first week in January. So I don't know that we should do it during the holiday because people got to buy their gifts for friends and family.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we will, and also give me some more time to get exactly organized on what we're going to do. But we're definitely going to do a Kickstarter to do more shorts. What I really want to do is a series of shorts, and you can maybe get an app or something where you could get the books and the shorts all for one price, all together. Yeah, which is cool. And we're going to offer some different things with our Kickstarter, besides your producer credit, something that hasn't been done, I can't say yet, on Kickstarter, which could be very interesting.
Well, now that John has ruined my comic timing,
Oh, but that's what you pay me for. That's right, you don't pay me. Never mind.
So as we say each and every week, boys and girls,
Oh, the cape.
don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.
Right.
Okay, now it's my turn. Okay, what are you doing? Taking over Dad's mic so I can be part of superhero speak. Duh. Well, there are better ways to join the conversation. Really? Like what? Well, you can interact with them on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and even Pinterest. Wait, people use Pinterest? And what's Google+? I don't know, something to do with circles. Anyway, you can also see all their posts, including comic book videos, on their website, where you can also sign up for their mailing list. Cool! Yep, are you still going to try to hijack Dad's mic? Nope, I'm going to try to answer the stump the key question. Nice. So who do you think would win in a fight between Rainbow Dash and Squirrel Girl? Oh, that's a hard one. Oh no, Dad's waking up. My lives!
Oh, what are you guys doing? That cape's gonna get caught on the door.
Ow!